What would you do if the man your wife hired to help you both through the darkest period of your lives turned out to be the very man she was sleeping with? I never thought I would find myself asking that question, let alone living the answer. The night everything broke was a Tuesday, a cold, unforgiving night in Chicago. I was lying in bed, the dull ache of my recent diagnosis, a constant companion. When the faint glow of her phone screen illuminated the ceiling, it was 2 a.m. She was usually asleep beside me, but tonight, she was in the living room. Gosh. Whispering into the phone, her voice a low, intimate murmur I'd never heard directed at me. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach, a feeling far more insidious than any physical pain. I knew, with a chilling certainty that pierced through the fog of my illness, that something was terribly wrong. And as I listened, a name, a familiar, trusted name, slipped from her lips, sealing my fate and hers. In a single, devastating breath, if you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. My wife, Sarah, had always been my rock. We'd built a life together in a quiet suburb of Dallas, Texas, a comfortable existence filled with shared dreams and unspoken promises. Then came the diagnosis, a rare, aggressive form of cancer. It hit us like a freight train. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, insisted we get help. She found Dr. Arthur Jenkins, a grief counselor specializing in couples facing terminal illness. He was charismatic, empathetic, with a soothing voice and an air of profound understanding. He became a fixture in our lives, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness, or so I thought. After that night in Chicago, the whispers, the late-night calls, the sudden trips to see her sister in Houston that stretched into days, they all started to make a horrifying kind of sense. Sarah, once so attentive, became distant, her touch mechanical, her eyes often elsewhere. She'd snap at me for trivial things, then immediately apologize, a forced sweetness that felt like sandpaper against my raw nerves. The woman I loved, the woman who vowed to stand by me through sickness and health, was slipping away, replaced by a stranger with a guilty conscience and a cruel indifference. I started noticing the small things first. A receipt for a high-end restaurant in Miami, tucked into her purse. Dated a day she was supposedly at a medical conference in New Orleans. A text message half hidden on her phone screen from a number I didn't recognize, simply saying, "Can't wait for next week, my love." My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of betrayal. I felt a cold, sickening dread spread through me, worse than any fear of my illness. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the audacity, the desecration of our sacred space, the violation of trust. During my most vulnerable time, and with Dr. Jenkins, the man we paid to help us cope with my impending death, the irony was a bitter poison. Sarah grew colder, more manipulative. She'd gaslight me, twisting my observations into paranoid delusions. "You're just stressed, honey." She'd coo, her eyes devoid of warmth. "The medication is making you imagine things." She made me feel like I was losing my mind, questioning my own sanity. She became untouchable. A queen on her deceitful throne, convinced I was too sick, too weak, too trusting to ever uncover her sordid secret. Arthur, the smug bastard, would look at me with pity during our sessions, a knowing smirk playing on his lips when Sarah wasn't looking. They thought they were so clever, so invincible. They thought I was a dying fool. I remember one afternoon sitting alone in our living room, the sun streaming through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I felt utterly broken. The cancer was eating away at my body, but their betrayal was devouring my soul. Tears streamed down my face, silent and hot, a testament to the depth of my pain. But then something shifted. A spark, small but fierce, ignited within me. If I was going to die, I wasn't going to die a cuckold. I wasn't going to let them win. My loyalty had been repaid with treachery, my vulnerability exploited. It was time for a different kind of fight. I started gathering proof, meticulously, patiently. My illness, ironically, became my cover. Who would suspect a dying man of being a master strategist? I installed discreet cameras in the house, not in the bedroom, but in the living areas, capturing their hushed phone calls, Sarah's furtive glances at her phone. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Frank from a small office in Queens, New York. To track Sarah's business trips, he provided me with photos, hotel receipts, flight manifests, irrefutable evidence of Sarah and Arthur's illicit rendezvous in places like the W Hotel in South Beach, Miami, and a secluded Airbnb in Malibu, Los Angeles. I even managed to recover deleted texts from Sarah's old phone, a treasure trove of sickening endearments and plans for their future, a future without me. The sheer volume of their deceit was staggering. With the proof in hand, I began to set my traps. I consulted with a sharp divorce attorney in downtown Los Angeles, a woman named Evelyn Reed, known for her ruthless efficiency. We discussed the at-fault divorce laws in Texas, the financial implications of adultery, and the potential for a civil suit against Arthur Jenkins for professional misconduct and emotional distress. I also contacted the Texas State Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors, outlining Arthur's egregious breach of ethics. I wanted to hit them where it hurt the most: their reputations, their careers, and their wallets. I made sure every step was legally sound, every piece of evidence admissible. I wasn't just seeking revenge. I was seeking justice, cold and calculated. The public exposure was orchestrated with surgical precision. I waited until I had undergone a particularly grueling round of chemotherapy. Knowing my weakened state would garner maximum sympathy, I filed for divorce, citing adultery, and simultaneously leaked the most damning evidence: the photos, the texts, the detailed reports from Frank to a local investigative journalist in Dallas, a woman I knew from my college days. The story broke like a tidal wave. Grief counselor betrays dying patient, sleeps with wife. The headline screamed. Soraya's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Arthur's practice was immediately suspended, his professional reputation in tatters. The social media outrage was swift and brutal. Friends, family, even strangers condemned them. Sarah was completely ruined. The divorce proceedings were a formality. She had no leg to stand on. The judge, a stern woman in the Dallas County Courthouse, looked at her with undisguised contempt. She lost everything: the house, her savings, her social standing. Her friends vanished, unable to stomach the scandal. Arthur faced a malpractice suit that stripped him of his license and left him financially devastated. I heard he moved to a small town in rural Georgia, a pariah. Sarah, last I heard, was working a minimum wage job. Her arrogance replaced by a hollow-eyed despair, survived the cancer against all odds. The doctors called it a miracle. But the man who emerged from that ordeal was not the same man who went in. The loyal, trusting husband was gone, replaced by someone colder, harder, forged in the fires of betrayal and revenge. I walk through life now, a ghost of my former self, the silence of my empty home, a constant reminder of the price of their deceit. The taste of victory was as bitter as the betrayal itself. The end.